And we are live. I'm teacher Kelly Tagg, and I am here with Cindy. Cindy, tell us a little about yourself.
Hello, I'm Cindy Bennett, and I'm on YouTube, and I'm a fellow teacher that I met Kelly on from teaching online, and I have taught ESL online. I've taught regular classes. I'm a math teacher, so I've taught math. I've taught yarn crafts. I have my yarn here, and other things like that, and I love to do YouTube as well.
Yes, her channel is Cindy Bennett 13. We have Kathy Kelly planning to watch while I get ready before my last class of the day. Awesome. Glad you're here, Kathy. What did you do this summer? We're going to talk about what we did this summer. Cindy's holding up her knitting. Well, let's start with that. So we did hobbies this summer. So tell us about yours. Obviously, knitting.
Yeah, I held it up because Kathy is the one who gave me the pattern for the sweater. And so, yeah, so I do some knitting. I also have some knitting videos on my channel. I do sock knitting, and I'm just kind of in between things. I like to knit or crochet, and I'm making some dishcloths for a craft fair in the fall, things like that. Um, Other things I've done this summer, had family visit. I live near the ocean, so I've gone to the ocean a few
Nice.
times, and I discovered I'm sure you go 7 a.m. the ocean, you don't have to pay for parking until 8 o'clock. I never knew that before.
Yeah, that's the thing
So it's
about the
pretty cool
northern
to go
beaches.
early in the morning.
Yeah, so when I was in New York City, I went to the beach with my sister. It amazed me you had to pay to go to the beach. I mean, the beach is a natural thing because, like, in Maryland, Virginia, we don't have to pay to go to the beach. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, that's crazy
Yeah,
than those
we
northern states.
it gets so crowded, and like if you go, say you try to go at 11 a.m. or something, you probably won't find a parking spot, and they're like a little ways away. There are people that just have, a parking spot for like $5 or $8 for the day. But if you could get a spot closer, it's like $20 for the day, something like
Mm.
that. So yeah,
How far do
and
you
then
live
it's
from the
packed.
beach? Yeah.
I'm probably about 30 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
I didn't imagine
it's
living
really
30
awesome.
minutes from the beach.
It's
We go,
awesome.
right. So our beach is, well, I have one that's like 2.5 to 3 hours, but I travel about 3 or 4 hours to go to our beach. We go once a year. So now we're going to talk about vacations. So you obviously did the beach near you. Did you do any other vacations?
We went up the first week of June. We went up north into the mountains and we went tenting. My daughter has 5 kids, and they had a camper. They actually sold it, and it was like Florida. Like I got a tan the beginning of June. It was awesome. It was perfect. And then actually, I'm headed down to Georgia to visit 4 of my children and their families live in
Nice.
Georgia, so we're headed down to visit them. So they do not live near the ocean, but they do have a
Darn.
couple lakes. Yeah. So
Right. So, oh, how did four of them all end up together? Is like one moved down and they're like, "Hey, this is great. Come on
yeah,
down."
pretty
Well, that's
much.
good.
Well, my one daughter went to my seventh daughter. She went to Florida to Pensacola Christian College. And so when she came back, she had a friend that they would drive from Florida to Georgia. And then my daughter would get a plane out of Georgia back home. It was cheaper. And
Mhm.
so she and that girl were best friends. And then, she said, "Oh, I want to stay over a couple extra days." And then they went to a cookout. Then she met this guy. And yeah, she ended up marrying him. And then she liked it there. So she convinced 3 of them to move closer to her.
Wow. Well, at least it's only one visit for
Yeah,
you. Well,
yeah,
I did
exactly.
3 vacations this summer. I went to Ocean City, Maryland. I know there's an Ocean City, New Jersey, so I always have to make sure I say Maryland. And then I went to New York City with just my daughter. My sister lives there, so it's easy for me to go there. And I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I have a video coming out hopefully before the weekend's over about a summer vlog of things I did. So there'll be pictures about all my trips, especially New York City on there. And then I also went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That was my kids' first time in the Pacific Ocean and their second time out of the country. They've been to Canada. So they haven't been outside of North America, but they've been out of the country twice. It was beautiful. We were right on the water. There were some issues with the place we stayed. So that part wasn't perfect, but we were still in Mexico, so I can't complain. Yeah. And then we got back from there actually less than a week ago, and we all got sick and had company over and
Oh,
got them sick. Yeah.
what kind of
So,
sick? Like
well,
stomach bug or?
no, COVID, and we know for sure it was
Oh,
COVID because we got
oh,
positive COVID tests.
wow.
And then my
Interesting.
daughter had bronchitis already before she got the COVID, and like hers turned into um, strep throat. And then my
Oh,
son is
no.
like, everybody's still sick. I'm over it now, but I was the first one to get sick, and I only had mild symptoms. But yeah, so that's what we're dealing with. And then I start school Monday, my teacher first day back, and I don't work in the county where I live. My son starts school Tuesday. Hopefully he's feeling better. He had to miss back to school night and like a bunch of stuff with his new soccer team this week because he was sick. Um, so that's unfortunate, but well, when do you go back? Obviously not soon because you're
Yeah,
still
we
doing.
have usually my husband, we kind of do our vacations according to what he can take off.
Oh, that makes sense.
And we usually do I think it's usually the first weeks of August, but it was a little bit later this year. And so I was looking at my calendar. We actually start teacher work week the week I get back. So
Okay.
the like 19th, something like that. And then
Okay.
we start regular school, but my kids are in high school. The high school kids are taking a trip for their
Where are they
first.
going?
I don't even know actually. They're doing, I think Hershey, Pennsylvania, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, last year. They went to the Ark Encounter in Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and that I didn't get to go. I'm actually a high school teacher, and I didn't get to go. Like, I guess
Darn.
they have plenty of chaperones, so I didn't get to go. So that was a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that first week, like I'll do teacher work week, and then I'll have a light week because the high school kids will be gone, and then it will kind of start in full force after Labor Day. So.
Okay. Yeah, my students start the week after. I go back Monday, then they start the week after. So it'll all be new to me. I'm not even like, I keep telling myself I should check work email, but I'm like, I don't want to till Monday.
Me
I'm not
too. I did the same
usually
thing. I
back
just want
till
to
then.
put on the calendar what day do I have to be there, and that's
Right.
it. Now, I
Yeah.
was going to ask you, are you going to have a classroom this year?
I am. So I'm starting at a new school, and I'm not going to be doing the resource anymore where I go out. I'm going to have 2 classrooms. I'm going to have a 2-year-old classroom in the morning. I think actually 2 2-year-old classrooms because they're only twice a week. So like I have one class. I think I have Mondays off from that. So like Tuesday, Thursday, one class, Wednesday, Friday. Then in the afternoons, 5 days a week, I've got 4-year-olds, a 6-6 class, 6 kids with disabilities and 6 kids who are like general ed who are peer models. So I'm going to be busy this year. Like they're, I, I was offered to do all this extra work, offered extra pay. So I guess I can't complain, but it's going to be busy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you have to decorate your rooms, or is that up to someone else?
I'm pretty sure I do, which I don't know the first thing about doing that. I haven't had, but I'll get advice. I'll see that that's a lot of students to keep track of between all those classes. Yes, I know. Yeah. So I did talk to them about, they were telling me if it gets overwhelming, we could do something like once a month or once something, get a sub and have a planning period. So it sounds like I can work with them if it gets overwhelming or I need extra time. So I think I have
Right. From what
two.
I
Go ahead.
from what I hear with the special needs, there's a lot of paperwork. Like, can you hear me? Like filling
Yes.
out paperwork, documenting
Yeah.
everything. I think that would be the hardest part about doing what you're doing, because you're going to have little kids you have to keep entertained, plus make sure you fill out all the paperwork or whatever they do.
Definitely. I don't know if I can get help from my paras. I think I have two paras. I hope I get along with them because you work pretty closely. Great decorating ideas are on Pinterest. Good to know. Yes. Kathy, what vacations did you go on this summer? What are you doing in the fall? Still teaching on Announce School? So let's see, what else? What books did you read this summer, Cindy?
Well, we read the 9/11 book together.
Yes.
We haven't really talked about that one yet. But I've also enjoyed at my library, got involved with the classic book club. We started this little, like, once a month we get together and we decide on a book to read that's a classic. And then we come together. So it's kind of interesting because we have people with different backgrounds and how they see the book, and we talk about like the characters and how we liked it and different aspects of the book. And so the recent one I actually didn't really read, but I listened to the discussion. It was Of Mice and Men. It was
Oh boy.
not the greatest book, but before that it was, what was the other book? We did To Kill a Mockingbird. They did Tale of Two Cities. The first one we did was Little Women. That was fun because there were a couple kids that came to that discussion. That was a little less heavy than some of the other ones. But the next book that we're doing is Uncle Tom's Cabin. So the next 2 weeks I'm actually listening to those. You can listen to them free on YouTube. So that's what's nice about the classics.
Right. Oh, that's tough. I don't know if I would like the classics. I remember in school hating reading those books, but maybe I would have a different perspective if I did it as an adult. It's one of the reasons I don't want to be an English teacher, having to.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, kids, these books suck.
Well, we talked about that, how how does a book become a classic? And one of the things about it, like, what was the book we read that had, it was 4 days? The one right before Of Mice and Men. My husband's right here. He's I can't think of the name of it. The one about the battle, huh? For Whom the Bell Tolls. And it was 4 days, and it's like a thick book. And it's just interesting the descriptive words that they use, and description. And I think that's one of the things about the classics is there's a lot of good vocabulary and a lot of sentence structure you don't find. Like, a lot of the current books is more just narrative in today's vernacular. But the older books have a lot of complex thoughts, ideas, vocabulary. So I think that's what's kind of interesting and get your mind working in a way other than just hearing a story.
Right. That's probably why they teach them in English classes, to learn the vocabulary. And yes, here, let's see what Kathy's saying. Oh, we already read that one. Great. I read that one too. No big vacation this summer because we did a 2-week cruise in February. Nice. Tell us where you went. A few days away for our anniversary in June. Where'd you go in June? And fall, still teaching 20 hours per week on Out School. I read all those classics you mentioned in high school. Yep, me too. And then we read, I had to look up the name of it. I forgot. It's called The Day the World Came to Town. That was the 9/11 book. And also there's a play, which I saw the play like 2 years ago. The play was called Come From Away. It was a Broadway play. Actually, let me get up some pictures from the play. I have them on Facebook. So they were like, let me get that up. But here, I'll tell a little about it. So there was this military hub in World War II that was in Gander, Canada. And, you know, so a lot of planes would come through this area in Gander. And then on 9/11, you know how all the planes were grounded. So then they all needed somewhere to go. So because there was this big military base that used to house planes, they had room. A whole bunch of planes came to this small town of Gander, Newfoundland. Hopefully, we haven't read it in a while. Hopefully I'm getting all these details right.
Yeah.
And then, so this small town of people had this huge amount of planes with like people on it from all over the world. And the whole book was about how these people just took everybody in. It will restore your faith in humanity. They were incredible people. They fed them, they clothed them, they let them stay at their houses, they let them borrow their cars, complete strangers. So when I go to Broadway, I play like the Broadway lotteries. You like put in and then you're able to get discounted tickets. So I ended up seeing this play because I won one of the lotteries. An incredible story. I mean, I feel like the play could have been like a TV show. It was good because it was a good story. But then read the book and told Cindy about it, and we kind of read it together, or like, you know, we're reading it simultaneously. Really, I highly recommend it to anyone. I love stories about 9/11 in general. And yeah, this one was really awesome. What do you have to say about the book, Cindy?
Yeah, I thought it was good. It told about different people, and like, you know, we were kind of watching it from home. They were kind of in a situation where they were rerouted from their everyday life, completely taken away from, like, they're headed home or they're headed somewhere, and they totally went to a place they never expected. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up with people, like at one point they were all in a school or something, and they were all like,
yes,
you know, they had to just all like stay there. And I remember one couple, they had gone to adopt a child and they were headed home, and then they got stuck in this place. They didn't know when they were going to get home. They didn't know how long this was going to take. They didn't know what was happening to the country.
Right. Oh, right. They hadn't even heard, like, you know, news reports because they were on an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah. So they didn't know, like, are we going to be here a week, 2 weeks, like a year? Like, we had no idea. They had no idea. And yeah, and how they managed all of those things. And just, yeah, I loved it how everybody kind of worked together. And they kind of like just lived for the moment for a while, just doing their everyday things in a faraway land they had never been before and never expected to be.
Right. So. And here's my pictures from Come From Away. We had pretty good seats, second row seats. Yeah. So the thing that I thought was tough about the book compared to watching the play was there were so many people and characters in the book. And, you know, in the book, I was listening to the audio, but you don't have a visual. So to me, keeping track of all these people was harder. But the fact that I had seen the play, I at least had in my mind, oh, that was that person. And even in the play, there were so many characters, like they had maybe the same actor playing several people. So for you, never having seen the play, was it really hard to keep track of all these people in your mind because there were so many of them?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was listening. No, I actually listened to it. So you can listening, but
Cindy, you're breaking up. We
going through
can.
a bad spot.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. Yeah,
Can
I
you see me
listened
now?
to it too, but just not being able to see the people, I think for me made it hard because you're trying to visualize when you're reading or listening to a book. But it did help that I had the play to reference. Oh, those were those people. Those were that people. Yeah, one thing that was very interesting about the play that was different from other Broadway plays is how ordinary the people looked. You know, mostly in Broadway plays, they make everyone look beautiful. So these people were literally ordinary looking people, which I thought made it really, really realistic, because if you're going to go on a plane, everybody's ordinary people. So like you had people with no makeup, with freckles, with overweight, like they made everybody look normal. And I love that, because that I felt like was more realistic, not everybody's beautiful on a plane. So I thought that was cool the way they did that in the play. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see what Kathy
Yeah,
had to
speaking
say.
of plays,
Uh-huh.
we had a play in our town. It was quite fascinating. All of a sudden I realized, okay, these people in my town, one guy wrote the play, and I don't know if they got actors from outside the town, but it was like a town, adults. It wasn't the high school or anything. And they put on a play, and I think they set up chairs for probably maybe 50 people, maybe 60 people or something. A very small amount of people. And I had no idea. This one guy from town was like, yeah, he did all the lighting and the set and everything. And he said, come on out to the play. So August is my husband's birthday. August 2nd, we went to a play in town. It was really cool. And I guess they used to do it often, and they were just kind of bringing it back. And it was about a Civil War veteran who was from our town. And then he was in the Civil War and in, all the aspects of all that. And he was a sharpshooter in the war and stuff. So it's quite interesting. It was like, I felt like it was such a privilege to be a part of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love local talent. Well, now I won't forget your husband's birthday, because my husband's is August 4th. My daughter's birthday's today. Unfortunately, we can't do much because she's still sick, but yeah. Kathy said, we went to Southern Caribbean Virgin Islands on a cruise, Vermont for anniversary. I want to read that 9/11 book. I highly recommend it. It's called The Day the World Came to Town. Actually, let me get up on Amazon so I could show everyone. So did you read any other books besides that one in the classics, Cindy?
Did I read any other books? I don't think so. Okay. I've been so busy with other stuff.
No guilt. I was just curious. Here, I'm going to show the Day the World Came to Town on the screen so we get a visual. And then I'll tell you guys about some of the books I read this summer. Here it is, The Day the World Came to Town, 9/11 in Gander, Newfoundland. Anyways, again, it will restore your faith in humanity. Those were incredible people who helped everybody. So I'll start with current. I'm reading the J.D. Vance book, Hillbillyology. Don't click off if you don't like his politics. To me, the book literally has nothing to do about politics. I think it was written a few years ago, so long before he was the vice presidential candidate. To me, it's more of a rags to riches story. He came from like a hillbilly country, very poor. He also does make the point in there, not all the poor, there's a white poor as well. You can't think of one race as only poor, and how then he goes and he goes to college. He's one of the first in his whole family to go to college. He first joins the Marines, which is where I'm at in the book now, and then goes to college. I saw the movie before watching the book, so I know he ends up going to Yale and becoming a law student before then getting into politics. So anyways, that one's really good. I'm about 70% through with it right now, the book. As always, books are, but the movie is on Netflix if you want to see that. I read Paris Hilton's book. I was looking for something to read on my way to and from Mexico, and it was like $2.99 on Apple Books. I love biographies, whether it's biographies about political figures or celebrities. I read Britney Spears' book. Both Paris Hilton and Britney Spears were like locked up. Paris Hilton in like a teenage thing, and now she speaks out about it. She even speaks out against Congress. And Britney with her father locking her up. The Watchmaker's Daughter, which was about a guy who had lived through the Holocaust. And you know what's interesting, Cindy? He had gone through Newfoundland, Gander, Newfoundland, as when he was in World War II. Yes. So I knew that connection immediately. I actually read that one and was like, oh, that's where that one was. And yeah, those are the books I've read this summer. So Cindy, you have been doing a lot with local politics. You got involved. Let's first talk about the school board. I think it's awesome. Everyone complains about the schools, but nobody's willing to get involved. But you got involved. You don't even teach in the public school. Your kids go to private school, but you still got involved in the school board in your local town. I think that's awesome. Right. Tell us about that.
Right. So, people say I don't do politics. So I ask them, do you pay taxes? And they go, right. Oh, shut up. But it's more like, I don't really call it, I feel like politics is more like, trying to get your way with something. That's what kind of politics talks about. But it's actually, what I'm trying to do is just being a citizen and getting involved in my community and kind of holding people accountable, the people that we vote for, holding them accountable. So I took a couple courses way back in like 2021, activism courses, and I just figured I would learn how to go to the school board and speak and tell them what we want as taxpayers. And then eventually I ended up running for school board and made it. So I've just been, basically I go to the meetings. There's 5 on our board. And we listen to everything. It kind of gives you more respect for what they're actually doing. And I do appreciate, like I did speak against a couple things before I was on the board. And now that I'm on the board, if somebody speaks against us, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, Yeah. So you get a whole different perspective and you appreciate the work that goes into it. And my whole goal would be to try and keep the taxes down, because in New Hampshire, like 75% of our property tax goes to the public school. But it's really hard because, the way it's set up, most of the money goes toward salaries and benefits for the people who work there. So how do you cut that down, Right. And then you don't want to cut down things like food for the children or curriculum or, Right. So you realize how much money goes into this. And so then I'm like, the next step we need to do is teach each other how to become millionaires. But I don't think that's going to work either, because once we all have more money, then everything's going to cost more money. So right. It's kind of a really hard spot we're in. But I don't have my kids in public school. I teach at a private school, so my kids can go there. Right. Or before that, I homeschooled, and for many reasons. But it's been a good experience. I'm done in March. I also ran this past March to be a trustee of the library. We have 3
Yes,
trustees of our library,
that's
and
great.
people have been complaining about libraries as well. And yeah, it's quite interesting. I would encourage everyone to, if you don't, we pay our taxes to have a library,
Hmm.
but the library has a philosophy all its own. When in our town, our library is completely funded by the taxpayer dollars.
Hmm.
So it should be completely run the way the taxpayers want it to be run. It shouldn't be run by some other entity's philosophy. So that's
Right.
kind of where I'm at with that. Like, it's our library, we're the citizens. We don't need to have any weird agenda beyond our town. And so
Yeah.
that's where I'm at with that. And so it's run into a lot of weird things. And lately we realized that our bookkeeping has been bad. So
Mm.
we're in the midst, hopefully today, to hire a bookkeeper that's outside of town to help us.
Oh, so they
So
don't
there's,
have like a vested interest. Yeah.
yeah. And they can just like, our town has our own bookkeeper, but the
Mm.
library is its own like entity, and we don't have the skills within the library to do the actual bookkeeping. So
Hmm.
we're gonna outsource it. So it's kind of it's been an interesting experience for sure. In
Yeah, it
New
sounds like it.
in New Hampshire, there's a law that says, like, say your kid is 5, 6 years old, they have their own library card, and they check out 5 books, and you call up the library and you say, hey, can you tell me the 5 books that Johnny checked out last week? I need to find them. And the library says, oh, I'm sorry, your child has privacy rights. We don't give out that information.
If they're under 18, you should have
No,
that
no.
information.
If they have their own library card, they have
That's
private
crazy.
privacy
5 years
rights. So
old?
yeah,
5?
5 years old. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
that's
goodness.
what one other thing I think is not appropriate. And so somebody passed that law in New Hampshire. So my thing is, like, we should tell the parents, are you sure you want your kid to have a library card? Maybe
Right.
your kid just checks out all the books on your card,
Yeah,
rather than,
because if they're going to do
going
that.
through that weird, uncomfortable.
Yeah. Kathy says,
So,
I'm currently
yeah.
reading Parenting 14 Gospel Principles That Can Radically Change Your Family by Paul David Tripp. I'm reading concurrently with a friend and we're getting together to discuss it. That's great. Parenting books can always help. Parenting is one of those things I feel like no matter, every kid's different, no matter what you think you know. You don't. I'm sure you know
Yeah.
that with 13 kids. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, well, that's crazy. I want to make a point based on what you were saying before about the school board too. See, we have that problem too where I live. So my county pays less than the county north, which is why I work in the county north of me. So they were talking about giving raises last year, but then a lot of elderly people on fixed incomes got together and said, hey, this is going to make my taxes go up, which is taking more out of my pocket, and my salary is fixed. And this is going to hurt me in that way. And that made it so then the teachers didn't get it. So, like you said, it's such a balance. You don't want the taxes to go up, but you want teachers to be paid. It's such a tough balance to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are also
Sure.
running for state representative of New Hampshire too, which is awesome. Tell us about that. That's kept you busy all summer.
Yeah, so in New Hampshire, I guess I didn't realize, I hadn't compared to other states, but we have one of the biggest legislatures in the entire country, and we're a teeny tiny state. We have 400 state representatives. And so we have people that are normal people like me, just throwing our hat in the ring and saying, okay, I'll go for it. And
Yeah.
ours is almost like half and half, conservative versus well, I guess you'd say Republicans and Democrats. And so there are some things that come down to just a few votes. And so I'm running as a conservative, trying to keep, we have a Republican state, so it's, conservative for the most part, but we get a lot of weird stuff like this library situation I just told you about. So I'm like for protecting the children, for parental rights of all levels, and what else? Keeping the taxes down. In New Hampshire, we don't have what is it called? We have high property tax, but we don't have the income tax.
Okay.
So that's always a big thing. Like, would you support a little tiny income tax? And you just have to keep saying no, because once you get a little tiny bit, then it's a big bit. So
give them an inch, they take a mile.
So there's things like that. So there's 3 of us running together, for hopefully the 3 of us get in. And we just had there's 6 people running in the primary. And we just had one of the 6. It came out that he's been telling people that he's a military veteran, and he isn't. So that could be good.
Sounds like somebody else I know. I don't want to get too much into politics.
It was actually right before that came out that this was all going around my town. And then the other thing came out, which was even bigger. So so we'll see what happens. It's hard in my town because there's 6 Republicans running for 3 seats, and people are like, why are you running against each other? And so first of all,
like a primary, right?
Because we're allowed to, like, it's the way the government is, it's like part of the fun. And I do want to say that even if I didn't make it, like, we have been like going door to door, and I've really met some amazing people. And I think that's the best part, is when you go to I went to the door the other day, knocked on the door, and this lady answers, and she's like, Cindy, she's like, I finally get to meet you. And she gave me a big hug and everything. So I felt like I was a celebrity. So that was really fun. Yeah. So that kind of stuff is like, makes it like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting the time in? I might not win, but you do make friends and you make progress. You get to know your neighbors better. And it just, sharing smiles with people, that can't hurt. So, yeah.
You know who started the door knocking thing, Cindy? Aaron Burr. He started door knocking. And at that time in history, like, nobody had ever done it. So they thought that was so strange. Like, even Alexander Hamilton was like, you're going door to door? That's weird. He's like, so he was considered the first modern day politician. And I mean, now it's common practice that people go door to door, but at the time that he started doing it, nobody was doing it. And they're like, that's really strange. Why would you do that? But he was very much into the charisma, and that's why people liked him, of course, until he murdered Alexander Hamilton. So,
well, they say it's interesting because we have like texting, emails, website, Facebook, all these social media. We have signs. We spent a lot of money on signs, but they still say that door to door is the best way to make connections, because I've been in ministry, like with churches and stuff, and you can invite people in a bunch of different ways, but when you invite them in person, face to face, it makes a way bigger impact, so they're more likely to actually vote for you if they met you, they shook your hand, and they know who you are, and they do give you credit for that, thanks for coming out. So.
Right. And then I was teaching those outschool classes during the pandemic where nobody could go door to door. So I'd always have to say, well, this was long before COVID. Before COVID, people actually used to go door to door. And I think one of the classes I would teach was in my civics class was about the election of 1800. And that was where Aaron Burr was going door to door. It'd be like before the internet, before COVID, people actually knocked on doors. But yeah, sounds like back to it. I think that's great. Some people hate solicitors, but like you said, like if they already knew you, and you have ways, and I heard this before you told me this too, Cindy, but you do have ways of seeing who people voted for in past elections. So you're able to also target people that would agree with you as well.
Right.
Is that right?
There is that you can get the voter list. It's not private. You can get the voter list. Any citizen can go to their town hall and get the voter list, and you can see who voted and who voted for what. So we do target certain houses. So when you go up to the door, you're not 100% sure, but you're pretty sure that they're going to be friendly. And then also right now, a lot of people have certain signs on their lawn. So
you can tell. Right.
That's been good too.
Yeah. So I heard, my husband told me this like a year ago, but when you write to your congressman or something about an issue or something, they can see if you voted in the last election, and they're going to be more likely to answer you or care what you have to say if they see that you voted. So all of you out there, if you vote, you're going to be listened to by your politicians a lot more closely. So I encourage everybody to vote, but be an informed voter.
Yes.
What I don't like is when people have no idea what's going on and they're just like, oh, I like the way he or she looks, or I like their race. Be an informed voter, know what you're voting for, but then vote.
And the other thing is, I tell some people, say, I don't want to vote. It's all rigged. My vote's not going to count, whatever. And I tell people, say, you're the 30th person that has told me that. Because there are a lot of people that say that, and I won the school board by 13 votes.
Yeah.
So, and nobody really, well, my kids worked at the ice cream shop. I figured that one out. So it might be because my kids worked at the ice cream shop and they knew a lot of people. Or it could be because I put signs out, I called people, and I did a lot of work behind the scenes. And I only won by 13. So for somebody to come up from nowhere, nobody at the public school knew me, and I won, but it wasn't by a lot. So 13 people, if those 13 people didn't vote for me, I wouldn't have made it. So, your vote can make a difference.
It can. And I'll go back to my civics class at, when I taught at Out School, I also taught about the election of 2000. That literally, like every single vote in Florida made a difference. It came down so close between Bush and Gore that year. And it was like 36 days after the election before we even knew who won. So your vote counts. And if you say that, and enough people say that, then nobody's vote counts. And then when you have an issue, you go to write your congressman, they're not going to listen to you because they're going to see they can tell who voted and who didn't. And they're going to be like, oh, he or she doesn't vote. So I'm not really going to worry about this issue. So, it has more impact than you think. And like Cindy said, 30 people are saying, oh, my vote doesn't count. That's 30 people. Had they voted collectively, those 30 votes could have made a big difference. And especially locally. I've always said all politics are local. And people didn't believe it until COVID and they saw your governor. What the governor said makes a big difference. So it's Cindy's running at the very local level, and Cindy, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but it is public information. So after you told me that you were running for state representative, I looked up your salary and you would only be making $100 a year. What the heck? You must really love Paul. You must really love what you're doing. So obviously not doing it for the money, or anyone who's running for state representative. That's what happens.
Yeah. People that you have to either, like a lot of retired people, they've retired. Like one of the guys that's running with me, the three, he just retired, and his situation is such that he can take the time for it. The other guy that's running, he's a business owner, and he has his own landscaping business, and his mom and his dad both work for his company, and he gets up early, does his work, or he does his work at other times. He's an amazing young guy. He's very conservative, awesome guy. His wife homeschools. Or people that are rich, or real estate people, because they can work all the other times. For me, it's going to cost me money to do this. Actually, it's a big stretch for me to do this, but I figured I'm kind of getting older, so I was asked to do it, so I figured I'll give it what I've got and see what happens, and try to juggle what I can. And it's not like you're going to work full time. There's certain days you have to be at the State House in order to do the votes. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so if you can get there for the days that they're voting, and they could be long days from what I've heard. But it's kind of interesting because I've been kind of working with a lot of people since 2020. And so a lot of these people are becoming my friends. And so when we meet up, it's like, oh, hey, one lady, she ran for governor, and I just saw her the other night. And, so a lot of the grassroots people in my state are just regular people, and I have gotten to know them. So it's kind of like, it'll be like kind of fun. But on the other hand, there's a lot of nasty people too.
Oh, yeah. In politics.
That's what I'm not looking forward to.
Right. Cindy said, it's admirable you're sacrificing for the good of your local community. So, well, you kind of answered this, but how much, I guess, per week or per month are you required to be there? Obviously for the votes, but like estimated, how often are they voting?
Well, you could get in, like if I get voted in, I could do absolutely nothing.
And for $100 a year,
yeah, like I could just like go ghost them. Like you're not really required to do anything. So your community is kind of like just hoping that you're gonna speak for them,
Right.
So, but what should you do? They say it's like 10 days out of the year, like Thursdays. They have votes on Thursdays. So they said show up for all the votes on Thursdays. Then I'm sure there's days they make it so you want to come.
Right.
And then, then also you want to keep track of things, like Mike, the guy that he's been a rep for 2 years. Oh, my husband's telling me to talk softer. I don't know why I'm talking so loud. Sorry. But he'll keep track of like the bills, and then he'll send out people like information to his email list, his constituents. People might call up, they might have things to say, but unfortunately most people don't. Like in all the things I've done, I've yet to get a call from a constituent.
Right. They normally would go straight to like the U.S. Representatives in the U.S. Senate. But maybe this could lead to bigger political things. But it's weird. After this, I started looking up all the states. I think there are I think it was, sorry if I get this wrong, someone could correct me. I think it was like New Mexico didn't pay people at all. And then like California paid their state representatives like $100,000 a year. So it's vastly different what different states
Maybe
pay.
I'll move to a different state.
I know. But do you want to move to California?
No, I don't. The other thing I was going to say was, like Mike, the guy that I'm running with, I keep telling him he should be governor. It'd be cool if I'm working with the governor right now. Could be
right. And you're starting to break up. I don't know. Yeah. I'll just talk for a second while you're breaking up. but I think it's great that you're getting involved. So maybe it'll lead to like U.S. representative or U.S. senator one day or governor. So this is where
I
you'll
don't
get
think
your
I'm going to be
experience.
governor. I'll support Mike. If Mike gets
Well,
to be governor, maybe he can give me a little job somewhere.
or maybe U.S. representative next or something. So
I don't know.
you'd have to partially move to Washington, D.C. if you did that, though.
No, yeah, then forget it. I'm not up for
Or
that.
travel in between. A lot of them will have like an apartment in DC, and then they obviously have another residence in their state or county.
I wouldn't mind maybe teaching younger people how to get involved in similar ways, you know.
There you
Get
go.
involved in the community, because I think we need that. A lot of the people in these roles are like lifers. They've been in there for many years, and they all have like a camaraderie, and they make it hard for anybody to come in and do something, make things better, you know. They just
Right.
keep doing it the same way. It seems like
Right.
it gets worse and worse.
And then, I mean, you can, I guess it depends on the state, but some of them you can run for these things at 18 and some it's like 21. So I remember when I was at the political TV station, we interviewed like the youngest mayor of a city. He was like 18 years old. So you can could you teach civics at your private school?
If they have it, if they offer it. I don't think they're offering it this year, but it's a possibility for some sort of future thing. But the other thing is, we did have a girl in our town that wanted to run. She's in college, and they said it would be too hard to be in college and do something like this. You know, that's the thing about the younger people, is they need the money, you know.
Right. Yeah, right. Unless, their parents are totally footing the bill. If they just were doing college with no part-time job, it might be doable. Because a lot of people, if a lot of people do college and a part-time job. So if you didn't have a part-time job and you could just do that, it might be doable, I would think.
The other thing is, there's a lot of money that goes around to get people to, like behave certain ways, like say
True.
you're a young person. So sometimes that gets in the way of actually being able to speak your own mind and that kind of thing.
Oh, right. Uh-huh.
So it's hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
We have to take it one day at a time, is what I end up saying a lot.
Right. And then a lot of people, rightfully so, might be like, oh, well, they don't have life experience at that age to know what they're doing. But I don't know. I think if someone wanted to get into politics, as a career, starting at like the state level might be a great start, So, well, let's see. I think we've talked about a lot of stuff. Anything else we need to talk about that we haven't?
Well, we were going to talk about YouTube, and
oh yeah,
our YouTube. My YouTube, I wanted to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm kind of stuck at like 875, something like that.
Wow.
And so I have been doing a math tutoring business, which I did quite a bit at the beginning of the summer, and I put up videos about what it would be like to have an online or virtual math tutor. I was able to do some math tutoring this summer. I would like to do that. That's kind of like as a future goal, like for, through the years, like if I am not teaching, I could do virtual teaching. But I really kind of wanted to up my YouTube, but it's been pretty slow. And so I found that if I made shorts, if I found some interesting things to do for shorts, that would bring in a few extra subscribers. But that's been hard.
Well, I'm in the same boat as you. So actually we were going to talk about goals, and YouTube was one of my goals. Well, here's the thing. I'm taking college classes to become certified to teach special ed preschool. So I had, well, 3 at the beginning of the summer, but 2 most of the summer. So that kept me busier than I thought. And so I had a whole list, like on my phone, I have a list of topics of like YouTube videos that I was going to make, like edited, put together, nice packaged YouTube videos I was going to do. Barely, I don't even think I got to any of those. I did do a lot of interviews because like this, you could just sit down and go live. And then I make shorts from existing videos, and my shorts have gotten me some subscribers, but I'm with you. I'm at 782 right now. And although I'm growing it slowly but surely, so I'm like you, I wanted to get to 1,000, didn't even come close. It's going to be hard to keep up with once the school year starts. I do have a summer vlog coming out soon, but I go live a lot, and the lives don't do as well, but they're so easy. You just sit down and talk, and like we're doing. But yeah, I just going to keep making, I put out 1 to 2 shorts a day made from existing videos, and that does help with the subs, but maybe like 1 every other day or something. I need a big blow up video. If you watch Think Media, they're always like, you're 1 video away from blowing up. I haven't had that yet.
I've started doing some videos on Lily and Fox stick. They're like, they're stick-on nails, but they look like painted nails.
Yeah, they
only
do.
$2. They're $2.99 per page, free shipping.
Okay. Oh, that's actually really good. Maybe I will buy some from you.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't sell them. It's not.
Oh,
it's
okay.
not. You don't. Yeah, it's not like a company. You just go to lilyandfox.com, and I just do it because I know there's a lot of people that like them, and I'm hoping they'll watch my videos. That's all I'm doing with it right now.
Yeah, well, that's another thing is that everybody says you need to niche down. And recently I did ask on my community tab, and I really appreciate everybody's feedback because I asked, but I was like, well, sometimes I get people unsubscribing. Like, why are people unsubscribing? One person said your topics are all over the place. I did.
Really?
Yeah. And then one person said, well, I sub to you because of online teaching, and now you're talking about other things, which I get that. See, I thought since I stayed in teaching, even though I went from online to in-person teaching, I thought, well, a lot of online teachers are in-person teachers as well, but I guess some of them aren't from the feedback I got. But I feel like, yeah, I kind of switched niches, but then at the same time, it's sort of in the same realm of teaching. But
yeah,
I guess I did. Yeah.
Think about like Oprah Winfrey. Did she always talk about the same thing?
Yeah.
You never knew. Randomly, she might be teaching. She might be interviewing somebody who lost weight one day, and then she's teaching about some random topic another day.
Yeah.
I think it's just people. I like to watch videos of teachers, like what they do, things that they enjoy. Like I think it just depends on finding the people that don't mind just like listening to everyday life kind of thing.
Right. And then they can pick and choose your videos too. Like, let's say they're, I did a few about weight loss. Like, if you're not interested in that and only interested in teaching, like, you don't have to watch that. But I think the problem comes in if people sub to me for that, but then I'm really talking about teaching most of the time. Yeah, so that's tough. I thought about branching off because I'm kind of thinking maybe it's the teaching isn't enough people in that niche is why I'm not growing, but I don't know. Is there another topic I want to talk about all the time? Even the cult ones did pretty well, but like, I don't want to talk about that all the time. I've moved on from that cult.
Right.
So we were going to talk about goals. So YouTube was one of my goals, which, I didn't do as much as I wanted for that. I was going to declutter, didn't get to that at all. I ended up being so busy between the vacations and the schooling, and I did work very, very part-time over the summer. That'll come out in my vlog. And then what was my third goal was to continue eating right and exercising, which in between vacations, I did pretty well on that. Of course, it all went out the window when I went on vacation, but I feel like that was a success despite that. Did you have anything else? Any other goals this summer besides YouTube?
Well, I have some goals, like I'm making stuff for a craft fair. My goal was to start my tutoring business, which I got everything together on it. Like I have an online, like what they call the landing page type of thing. But now with everything else I'm doing, that's kind of on hold, but it's
Yeah.
still there to use when I'm ready. And what else? I don't know. And as far as house stuff, like I am decluttering. I have painted cabinets. So I painted my cabinets, painted my walls, decluttered a few things in the kitchen. So I'm still progressing on that. It's like not done, but the kitchen area is pretty much done. So I have done quite a bit.
Well, that's good. Well, yeah, I want to keep up with what's going on. Let us know if you win this representative. Yeah. When's the voting for that?
The primary is September 10th. So if I win the primary, then I'll win in November. Then okay. I don't start the job really until you get like sworn in January, something like that.
So it's just like the president. You vote the same day in November, you get sworn in January 20th. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming on today. It was fun talking.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It's good to see you.
Thanks to all of you that watched. All right. Bye. See you later.